Hello, everyone, and welcome to Brain Fitness One. In this special episode, we're turning the spotlight inward to share the powerful journey of Amber, emotional eating, hormones, and digestive expert, and an unwavering advocate for food freedom, body love, and holistic recovery. Amber, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm excited to be here with you.
Awesome. Well, we're really excited to hear your journey, and would love to start with a bit about your career in holistic wellness and also your No Sugarcoating podcast.
Yeah, so I've had my business for 12 years now, and I coach women globally to claim what I call food and body freedom, which is full freedom from self-sabotage of food, including food addiction, emotional eating, binge eating, and bulimia, any kind of compulsive eating where we're using food as a coping mechanism. And then, of course, along with that comes the physical healing, which is healing inflammation, rewiring the brain. That is a big part of this journey. Working on our brain chemistry, balancing blood sugar, working on our gut and our hormones. And then there's this deep emotional, energetic part of this journey, which is really around building self-love and respect, which is learning how to deal with and cope in mindful and healthy ways and understand what our triggers are, emotional eating triggers or weight loss blocks, whatever it is that's triggering us. Our teachers, and they're just trying to show us where we're out of alignment and where we haven't maybe fully grown or stepped into our power. So, and then with the podcast that was birthed almost 10 years ago, we have almost 600 episodes.
Awesome.
And yeah, we're in the top 1% of podcasts listened to in the world. So I'm very grateful. And it's just such a great place to come and share not only incredible experts and guests with their experiences in healing and gifts that they can bring to the table, but I just put my heart on my sleeve on my podcast and I just share all the experiences, the vulnerabilities, what I've been through, even up until this day, and not just with healing binge eating, but like business and money and manifestation and hormones and like being a people pleaser and healing those kinds of things. Just so many different things that are part of the journey, regardless of what you're dealing with. So it was a blessing to go through what I did myself and end up in service to others, because a lot of people don't realize this, but there's a staggering stat. So 90% of the female population in North America is struggling with some form of, I know the term is disordered eating, but I say emotional relationship with food. Disorder just feels like has a very dense, permanent label. And I just really feel we can heal it. And 40 to 50% of men struggle as well. So it's an epidemic.
Ask that question next.
Yeah. It's an epidemic.
Okay. Where did you start out in this journey? Like, what was the impetus?
Yeah. So my own deep journey with going down a really dark path of struggling with emotional eating that then turned into binge eating, which turned into bulimia and just a full blown food addiction. So we all have circumstances that shape us when we're in our childhood and growing up. And just a couple of quick references that really had a significant impact for me. The first one was when I was 5, I took the bus for the first time and the whole bus just started making fun of me, calling me fat and ugly, and it was all boys. And I took that totally to heart. Obviously had a huge traumatic stress response and this wound, it just felt like it was like stuck inside of me. And I really believed them and took that on as my identity for the next 20 years of my life. And my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis before I was born. And so there was this avenue of, we did so much and revolved it around food because there was so much we couldn't do together. And I think she used food as a way to compensate for not being able to go on long walks or do a lot of physical activity because her symptoms would flare up quickly and like the dizziness and the feet would go numb and all that kind of stuff. And so then also witnessing my mom just decline my entire life from childhood was very emotional. And there was so much grief and helplessness and just all kinds of things that I didn't know how to deal with at a young age. And I was the only child. So I was just like, I don't want to be a burden to anyone with my emotions and my things. Like, I'll just hold it inside and just eat or just be strong, right? And so I think a lot of that was just stored and built up in my body over the years. And then I consciously started binge eating in my early 20s. After a breakup, I couldn't eat. I lost weight really fast, wasn't attainable. And then I gained 80 pounds in 4 months, started binge eating. And I absolutely fell out of control with food and everything in my life. And then from there, what's so interesting about dealing with these habits and behaviors is we're not taught at all about why we do these things. What are the true roots of this? Why are we chasing a reward, a dopamine high? Why is all this going on? And I had no idea. I knew nothing about any of this until I started healing. But I always say we end up in this place where it's like I knew I was hurting my body at some point, but my desire for like the quick euphoric pleasure moment of experiencing the reward of anticipating eating and starting to eat the food and getting that massive dopamine hit just like trumped all the suffering and all of the consequences of hurting my body. And so it's like we end up in this comfort zone of suffering where it's familiar and safe and food is my friend and it makes me feel good. And there's almost this denial like state that it's not a big deal. And then all the repercussions, of course, physically, mentally, emotionally, etc. And there's fear of unknown, of who would I be if I didn't use food as a coping mechanism? Who would I be if I actually tried to figure out why I'm doing this? Gosh, I got 80 pounds to lose. That's a lot. That feels daunting and overwhelming. I feel like garbage. I'm inflamed. I'm puffy. My digestion's a mess. So it's like, I call it the inner critic, the ego mind. It just convinces you to just justify why you should just keep doing what you're doing. And then, of course, as we know, the brain has a part of it called the amygdala, which is that, fight or flight scanning for
Fear
threat.
Response, sure.
Right? And so every time I would think about maybe trying to do something about it, my amygdala's like, that's not safe.
Yeah.
This is safe. So like when you start to understand how the brain is actually like trying to keep you safe, but it's not a safe behavior, there's just so much to like dive into and understand that starts to help you not feel crazy that you're dealing with this. I thought it was crazy. I'm like, why can't I just eat a bit of sugar? Why can't I just have a piece of bread without like wanting to eat the whole loaf? But I just bring that up because I think a lot of people get really hard on themselves about like, why don't I have willpower? Why can't I just, have control? And it's seriously so much deeper than that for so many. And for me, my low point moment where I really like woke up and went, I have to try and figure this out, was I would throw the food in the garbage and then I would obviously be turned off from finishing it.
And how old were you at this time?
I was 21.
Okay.
Yeah. So throw it away. And then I'd just be crying on the couch in pain because I would eat until I was so full I was sick. Like I was spending $30, $40, $50 a night at the organic store trying to justify why it was a healthier choice. It didn't matter, right? With the volume I was consuming. And the particular night, I'd get some room in my stomach and then I would justify, if this is the last time I'm going to do this, I might as well eat the rest of the food. So that night I dug through the garbage and I ate it. And then I threw it out in the dumpster outside and went out and dug through later. And it was just like such a low point of shame and embarrassment. And who am I? How did this end up to be my life? I just ate out of my garbage in the dumpster. I'm alone. I'm broke. I have a crappy job. Like nothing in my life is going the way I wanted to. I don't understand how I ended up here. And what happened in that moment is all my fear of the unknown, the fear of getting uncomfortable, all that just got crushed. The suffering just became so big I could no longer be in denial or ignore it. And that's what really triggered me to like go on the journey. The visual that I describe it like is standing on the edge of the Amazon jungle with a butter knife. And that's it, just getting ready to try and find my way through because I had no idea. I grew up standard American diet. My doctor was God, right? Like just you get bad genes or good genes. I don't know anything about my health. Like it was just so innocent, right? Just like a kind of a slave to the system. And so I was like, okay, here we go. I got to figure this out. And that's what catapults me onto the journey of healing.
And quick question on that. So how different is the Canadian diet from, you said typical American, right? So USDA.
No different.
Yeah, no different, which I think is almost criminal, to be blunt.
Yes.
When you look at what we grew up with the food pyramid, I mean, it's completely backwards to what we know today relative to health and nutrition. And that's something we're actually trying to help support everyone is, really understanding that foundation of what nutrition is. Are children in Canada actually educated on these types of, No, that's so tragic.
It is. And one day I went to the grocery store where I grew up and there was a young gal checking out my groceries and she did not know what any of the produce was. I had a sweet potato, an avocado, a beet, and some red bell peppers. And she's like, what is this? I don't know what this is. And so I had to like help show her like the disconnect between like this newer generation not even knowing where their food is coming from is so disheartening. And I grew up in a farming community.
Sure.
So to go home and have people be like, what is this? It just goes to show you the big miss. Yeah.
100%. Yeah. I also grew up on a farm. So I really empathize with that. But, the majority of the country does not. And, they're following these guidelines that we have been given. Another analogy that we talk a lot about on this podcast is really just the lack of education in the nervous system or the brain. And again, the connection between the gut and the brain and just general nutrition in the brain. And it's absolutely tragic, but ultimately something that we're trying to help support and improve at the end of the day. But
which is amazing because you're seeing and learning and hearing more, and these resources and what you're offering is just so needed.
Yeah.
And I think it just, again, knowledge is power. And the more we can educate ourselves and others that you're not crazy, there's so much going on that you've been misled, miseducated about, right? It just helps you not feel crazy. And that's really what happened when I went on the journey. It was like, oh, this isn't just me. I don't just suck and don't have willpower. Like, this is so much deeper than that.
Sure. Absolutely. I've had many family and friends that I've seen go through this journey, and I definitely can empathize with the pain, having been a support structure there. So I really appreciate your work. It's very, very, very much needed. So maybe any patterns that you've seen relative to the type of people that you've worked with over the years, or relative to the actual solutions, anything you want to share?
So definitely one of the biggest things is they're repeating the pattern the same time every day. And we know what happens in the brain when we do that, right? We rewire a pathway or wire a pathway. And even if we don't want to do it, we don't want to binge, that pathway is lighting up going, hey, this is what you do. This is the time of day. And that was one of the most liberating things to learn, was that, oh my goodness, I innocently created this pattern and I don't want to do this right now. But there is this part of me that is literally so strong in telling me this is what I should do. So that is just something so empowering when I teach my clients and help them in their healing is, what is the time of day that you are repeating this behavior? Because that's why the pull is so strong as part of that brain wiring.
And what time of the day is that, just on average? I'm curious.
It's the evening after the work day is done, turning the TV on, right? Checking out with tech and food, or they turn the TV on and that triggers that pathway to light up and they associate food and TV. I went through that as well. And so if you have several patterns, like I eat and watch TV and it's the evening, it's an even stronger pull.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's a big one, is the evening. And then for some, it's the afternoon. And part of that is due to high cortisol, adrenal fatigue issues. They have low blood sugar. So not only is their energy crashing in the afternoon, their blood sugar is crashing. They're not eating enough protein and fat. They're not well nourished. They're exhausted, overbooked, last on their list, the chronic people pleaser perfectionist. And so then they crash, and then they have massive cravings for processed sugar, refined carbs and salt, caffeine. And so they're reaching for these very sugar, empty calorie foods. And that is just giving them more of a crash. And then triggers the all or nothing, like, screw it, I've already messed up right on my diet or my clean eating. So I'm going to just eat whatever I want. And I had that mentality, like, if I was just a little off my clean eating or my quote unquote diet that I was trying to use to fix this, I was throwing in the towel. So I see diets and restriction to be huge triggers that create and fuel these kinds of behaviors, because they're teaching you so many rules and restrictions. And at some point we rebel, or the body is like, I need fuel. You're not giving me enough. Right. And then that can really impact our hunger hormones and our appetite levels.
Side note, we think of what we're building at Brain One as a Noom for neuroscience, and Noom, using CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy type approaches, has been extremely successful, which is ironic when you look at Weight Watchers, who literally just filed for bankruptcy 2 weeks ago. And I just find that fascinating. I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on that, like relative to a solution approach.
Yeah, I think things like that are extremely important, because a lot of it does come down to like your habits and your patterns.
Yep.
And I think we just are just creatures of habit, and we don't want change, and we're too exhausted to try and change. And then when your brain is also like, yeah, that doesn't feel safe, let's just keep doing the same thing. It's nice to know that we have tools that can repattern, help us like shift to something more empowering. And yeah, the quick fix is just not going to work. So I'm not surprised about the Weight Watchers thing. All these places just need to be done. But now the problem is the Ozempic and all of these, right? And that's, oh my gosh, a whole other conversation, but it's causing serious issues.
I have been hearing from friends and family. And as soon as you go off of it, I mean, my understanding is you basically just gain the weight, fairly immediately.
Yeah. And because it's suppressing your ghrelin and your leptin, your hunger hormone that makes you hungry and full, when you come off of it, the ghrelin spikes. And so it's actually triggering binge eating behaviors and overeating behaviors in people, even if they didn't have any issues before. And obviously it's just amplifying those issues for those that had it before. And then they start it, and obviously like they don't feel anything. They're not hungry. They have no cravings. Everything's just shut off, which isn't normal. And it just further proves why quick fixes don't work and why we've got to be willing to want to do the deeper work and have the conversations and encourage people to do the deeper work. Because, you know, when you lose weight and you gain a bunch back and you are insecure, it is a very vulnerable experience to go through.
We evangelize micro habits. And again, the use of like incremental behavioral change and, you know, these fast solutions, whether it's a pill or a shot or, you know, just a diet fad, you know, they don't work long term. And it's exactly for the reasons that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
So
I love the micro habit thing. I think that's honestly the way. It's truly the
foundation of what we do, actually.
Yeah, same. It's unrealistic to expect people to make massive changes and steps so far out of their comfort zone. And then you overwhelm their nervous systems even more, and their systems are already overwhelmed.
Yes, exactly. Can you share some of the transformation stories that have really stood out for you? Anyone that came in overwhelmed or disconnected and ultimately experienced lasting change?
Yeah. So this is most of my clients, and some of the most memorable, I would say, would be women who've been struggling with this for 30 to 50 plus years.
Wow.
And they have been binge eating, they've dieted, they've been in bulimia, they've kind of been in everything, and they've gained and lost who knows how many pounds, and they're just in such deep self-loathing. And they're tired of, you know, the next quick fix. They're like, you know what, I'm realizing that I've just been reaching quick fixes because I've been afraid to do the deeper work. I haven't found the right person or, you know, resources to help. And so what ends up happening is the clients that come to work with me, they do not just manage this, they fully overcome it. And that is because we're addressing the roots. So we start with identifying their triggers and providing healthier ways to cope, those micro habit changes, right? With sleep, self-care, boundaries, adjusting schedule, like small changes. And then they start to have more energy, more confidence that they can say no or ask for help or whatever it is that they've been insecure about. You know, making sure they're eating enough while they're working on the emotional eating healing and then working on hormones, gut, blood sugar. And some women within a week start to feel better. So within a month, we start to see traction in less emotional and binge eating. Within 3 to 6 months, some women have fully stopped. But I find usually within a year, most of my clients have completely eradicated bulimia, binge, or emotional eating fully. And then we have to work on the self-worth and the patience around the weight loss, because when you've spent most of your life fighting with your body and food, like women and men don't realize how dysregulated your nervous system is, how much, right? The body and the brain is just like freeze, fight or flight all the time. And so then we have to work on safety. And so I find there's a lot of inner child healing because they had a lot of experiences growing up that really they're hanging on to this day, right? In their nervous system.
Like IFS as an example. Internal family system.
Yeah, totally. I love to get curious. I want my clients to be in tune with their bodies. It's your superpower. You should know what's going on. You should learn how to listen, right?
But we're never taught that. You know, at the end of the day, it's a tragedy. Yeah,
it is. And then we think, well, who am I to talk to my body? My body's not going to answer. I don't know anything. And it's like, you'd be surprised if you just paused for a few minutes and asked your body, hey, like, what are you feeling? Why are you feeling this way? Your body will talk to you. So I teach them how to talk to their bodies, and that helps provide more information. Why does your body not feel safe? Why are you hanging on to weight? Why do you have this symptom? Why did you get triggered last night? And the information and insights that come from the body are just so powerful. And then we do work on like the rewiring of like, or, you know, reprogramming the subconscious mind with like the identity that they really want to step into, right? Because they've been affirming for years they're not good enough and they hate themselves and all the negative, and we know all the negative emotion, how that impacts us to a cellular level now. So it's very significant. So we pick away and like baby step and work on all these different things. We make sure their dopamine and serotonin and their neurotransmitters are, you know, balancing out.
And are you actually testing that from a
we definitely do sometimes, for sure, along with the hormones and things like that, especially if someone is shifting, but something still feels like it's off. And then, of course, if they need further support out of what I can do, I'll refer them to whomever will be able to help them. But yes. And then like the education, just helping them understand like how everything is so interconnected. So women fully healing this, women seeing significant improvements, of course, first with their relationship with themselves and then their spouse. Oh my gosh. So many marriages and relationships have been saved through these women doing this work, or they realize this is out of alignment. I need to get out of this circumstance. And, they find someone better. They're starting businesses, growing businesses, finding their purpose. They're getting raises in their careers because now they're stepping into their power. They're healing injuries and things that their doctor told them they'd never, ever be able to heal. I had one client, she had a knee soft tissue injury. And the doctor's like, you're just going to have to deal with this and take this forever. And then after a year, she went back and got her x-ray and it was fully healed. And the doctor literally was like, what did you do? This is impossible. And she's like, I healed my relationship with food. And he just looked at her like, what?
Yeah. Can I tell you a quick anecdote?
Yeah.
That's very somewhat related. So I live here in Colorado, and in the winter, we ski and snowboard almost every day. And I broke my clavicle 2 years ago, my first bone as an adult. And I go to the Steadman Institute, the #1 orthopedic in the United States, and, go in and they do an x-ray and they're like, you've been skiing on this for 2 weeks. It's completely broken. And so it was bone on bone. And anyway, I was like, great, what's my, what's my health protocol to rehab this? And they threw me a sling. So it was immobilization and like a piece of paper. And I was like, this is my health protocol. And so I went to my network and I was like, guys, broke my clavicle. What do you think? Everyone's like, oh, bone broth, collagen. And so I was making these amazing bison stews and collagen supplements. And I did some PEMF. Do you know PEMF? PEMF?
No. Yes. That is
it's
great.
electromagnetic current.
Yeah.
And they said, come back in 6 weeks. And I was traveling. So I came back in like about 4 weeks, and I go in and she takes the x-ray and she comes in the room. She's like, oh my gosh, it's a miracle. What have you been doing? And I was like, doctor, I've been focusing on my nutrition. And the doctor was literally like, I never would have thought of that, was her response. And it completely blew my mind that the #1 orthopedic in the United States quite literally, wouldn't have thought about nutrition and how nutrition can actually help, facilitate healing and actual bone structure. So I just wanted to call that out as just an anecdote that I've seen this firsthand. And so the doctors that are trying to, guide us in these processes are not even necessarily the most educated in the fundamentals. And it's just absolutely tragic.
No. Well, and even if you look at, thank you for sharing that story. I'm so glad you're able to heal it so easily. But even if you look at certain like protocols for like dealing with binge eating and emotional eating, it's like, eat these foods, have willpower, take a breath and drink some water. Just drink some water. It's probably, it's very vague. Or there's a lot of, and not all of them are like this. There's so many gifted people in every area of our health and wellness, right? And there's also those that are either not equipped or have no idea because they haven't been through it themselves.
Sure.
And I saw a psychologist once when I was starting on my healing journey and poured my heart out for the first time. She looked at me and said, just don't go to the store and buy the food. You just need to love yourself. And that is not going to, and it's okay. She had never been through it. I was like, have you ever even been through this? She's like, no. And then so it's like, if you don't know and you haven't been through and there's that lack of empathy when someone feels so unsafe and so vulnerable sharing a story, it's going to be very hard for them to, feel safe enough continuing to come and see you and want to, heal. So I think that there's a whole new re-educationing that needs to be done around like how we heal binge eating and emotional eating and all this. Like I would love to meet some people who we could head this up and get this going, because you can clean up the food. That's important. But people are still going to have all this programming and all this unworthiness and all of these other triggers that are not necessarily food related. I stopped eating the processed sugar. I stopped eating the fast food. I still wanted to binge on a whole jar of natural peanut butter and 10 bananas.
Right. Sure. Yeah. Just because it's natural doesn't necessarily make it any more healthy.
No.
So, 100%. Really interesting. Side note, we build health protocols at Brain One, and I'd love to chat with you about building some specific to, binge eating protocols that are actually efficacious, and we give these protocols away. But again, having these structured frameworks people can follow because they really don't know where to start. Really, really powerful.
Awesome. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, really, really cool. That is awesome. What other tools or mindset shifts have you found to be the most powerful in helping clients like release guilt, shame, and just the general obsession? We talked a little bit about maybe IFS, but any other tools or frameworks?
100%. So EFT tapping, have you heard of that?
I have, yeah.
Oh my gosh, game changer.
Sure.
It saved my life. I'm telling you that L-glutamine powder when I had horrible sugar cravings, it was like,
wow.
Do I do this? I tap and I take my glutamine, or I'm going to the store, and it really helped me over the edge sometimes. But I love EFT tapping because it's, of course, we know it helps get us out of fight or flight back into rest and digest. And we can clear so much suppressed emotion to a cellular level and out of our subconscious. And then we can start tapping in what we want.
Amazing.
Right?
And what's the connection between the EFT and the glutamine?
There isn't really one. So what I love with the glutamine is it's the only amino acid that crosses the blood-brain barrier. So it shuts off your sugar and carb cravings instantly. So I was dealing with such an intense sugar addiction that it would save me sometimes because my cravings would just be so strong and I didn't yet know why. So it was a helper along the way while I learned more about why I was craving so much sugar.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really cool.
So that, and then sacred rage. I call it sacred rage, but it's really a great technique to move negative emotion out of the body. Some people might be like, that I'm not willing to do, but don't judge it until you try it. So anyone who's been in these kinds of behaviors, or you don't speak up, you're holding a lot of stuck emotion and energy in the body. So you put a timer on for 5 minutes. You go into your room, close the door, you beat up your pillow, and you think about all the fear, the worry, the shame, the guilt, whatever you're feeling that's negative and really intense and bothering you, and you scream it out into your pillow. You can also go into the woods. You can drive down the road. It doesn't matter. But the release and the regulation of your nervous system and how much calmer you're going to feel is night and day. 5 minutes. I swear by it.
Does that involve shaking as well, or is it?
You can shake. So I love somatic shaking as well. So you can shake your body. That's another one of my favorites. And then I can't remember the technique, but you put your hands behind the back of your bottom of your head and you breathe, you look to one side and you take a few deep breaths, and you look to the other side and take a few deep breaths. So I love these kinds of techniques.
Yeah, really, really cool. And they're free, and they're things that people can do in their homes or in the woods or, ultimately at their leisure. That's really, really cool. How do you create safe, empowering spaces for women to reconnect with their bodies and ultimately build trust in healing? Anything you can share there relative to processes or tools or frameworks?
Yeah, I think the first thing is just really ensuring that the space is held in a safe way. It's a judgment-free zone. They can come and share what they want. And I do think just me being so open on my social and my podcast, like, lets them know they're not alone.
Sure.
And then from there, it's welcoming them in and letting them share exactly what's been going on for them and giving them love and reassurance and hope, frankly, in the beginning that you can heal this. I believe in you, because she doesn't right now. She's like, I don't know what to do. Yeah. And then from there, it's helping them starting to identify what's triggering them, because once they start understanding that, and once they start deciphering the difference between physical and emotional hunger, they're mind blown that it's 90% of the time emotional hunger, and starting to look at triggers like, it's not just, I'm sad and I want to eat ice cream. It's like, I'm a people pleaser. I'm overwhelmed. I have adrenal fatigue. It's increasing my appetite levels and exhaustion. And then I'm in an I don't care mentality and I just want to eat whatever I want. And so helping them connect the dots to those triggers and why they're triggers is extremely empowering, because then we introduce a tool I call the 7-step emotional eating rescue plan. And it's beautiful because the first important thing about it is, instead of just going to food, you're pattern interrupting. And you're going to start, dissolving that old pathway that's so strong right now and create the new one, which is like, let me take ownership. Let me look at what's actually going on. So identifying the trigger. Why is it a trigger? What does it cost me to keep using food? And what do I actually need instead? And so as they start this deep reflection and awareness, usually by the time they're a good half or third of the way through the process, they're so turned off by wanting to go and self-sabotage because the costs are just too big, right? So that tool, life-changing, helps them so much.
Do you have a copy of that somewhere you can share or I can post?
I can email it to you. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. I'd love to.
Yeah. So that I find to be very helpful. And then getting them into a block of quiet time, whether it's for meditation, breath, the tapping, the shaking, the sacred rage, nature, journal, We need to start becoming attuned and aware of why am I feeling this and why do I want to keep doing this?
Yeah.
So we need to start prioritizing time for ourselves. And then we can use tools like tapping and breath to clear the guilt out that they feel for prioritizing themselves because that comes up.
Sure.
Yeah.
What about the importance of connection? Whether it's to yourself or to nature or to a higher power, something that we talk about a lot as a micro habit is, again, the power of connection. And you're actually more neurologically optimized when you have connection to, any of those aforementioned areas. I'm just curious, how does that play into your work?
Huge. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's extremely important. And one of the biggest blocks is these women have been disconnected from themselves forever, for years. And so through the coaching and helping them prioritize starting to have some connection time, even if they just close their eyes and put their hand on their heart and, do a few deep breaths or some affirmations. Yeah. Get your feet in the grass, get some sunshine. And what's really cool is as they heal, and this happened to me too, they start having a much deeper connection or a connection to a higher power. Their intuition comes online. They realize they're sensitive empaths and we have to learn how to manage those energetic boundaries. But now they're like, I have the superpower of intuition. And that was snuffed out when they were in these habits and behaviors. So all of that I'm always preaching is so important. And it helps you stabilize your mood and produce enough serotonin and all these different things that are going to help you, clear your desire to want to have a quick self-destructive high instead of that. You can create this stabilization through this connection.
Wow. That's really profound.
Yeah.
Awesome. Very, very cool. Any advice you would give to men or women who feel stuck in the cycle of food obsession and self-judgment and, any guidance?
Number one, you're not alone. Try to give yourself some grace. This is so complex and multi-layered and we have not been taught.
Yeah.
I think try to start with self-forgiveness. Truly try to practice self-forgiveness and compassion. And then I do think if this is something you've been struggling with for years or decades and you've tried all the different things and nothing is working, if you can be willing to seek some support and invest in your healing, because sometimes that is the thing that is going to help us address all of these roots, and obviously reach out to someone or a team that you feel comfortable and connected to, and be patient with the journey. This is not going to resolve in a week or a month. It is going to take time, but the amount of time you will spend healing it is so much less than what you have ahead of you for the rest of your life to live in your power and fully, what I call, step into, the man or woman you've always dreamed of being in full connection and worthiness with yourself. It literally opens up everything else in your life. And then I think the last thing is just, making sure that you're not just talking about it with whomever you go and work with, but they're coaching you, they're providing you with tools and support and accountability, and also pointing out where your patterns are and helping you shift them. And the last piece that's always, I find, not correlated, but so extremely important, is obviously emotional eating is emotional, it's mental, it's chemical, it's psychological, it's energetic, it's spiritual, it's all the levels. But there's a huge, not only, gut component, but hormonal component. And most people have never had their hormones thoroughly tested.
Yep.
And the ranges are way too big and functional are much smaller. And so most people are walking around with all these hormone issues that are causing serotonin, oxytocin, dopamine deficiencies. And they wonder why they're constantly reaching for a high from food. So make sure you don't leave that out of your piece of the puzzle. I do hormone testing with all of my clients.
Okay.
Never had someone without an issue in some realm. And then we work on balancing things naturally. But hormone imbalances become emotional eating triggers. And obviously these behaviors with emotional and binge eating amplify hormone issues. So we need to deal with that.
Yeah, 100%. I was giving a talk recently, and some of the protocols we're now working on are covering things like PCOS and endometriosis and perimenopause and menopause. And after the talk, a woman came up to me and she's like, "Oh my gosh, thank you so much for addressing perimenopause. I'm going through it right now." And she's like 33, and it's just absolutely tragic. Nearly every woman I know is dealing with a thyroid issue or some endocrine disruption. And the question is why? And, I personally believe it's environmental. We talk a lot about fragrances, phthalates, and then just the bevy of other things like glyphosate and BPAs and PFAs and so forth. But Just curious, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I think that's a huge component. The bodies are just overloaded with toxins. And then I also see, in these behaviors, when we're over consuming, obviously that's going to cause a heavy load of inflammation and stress on the body. I believe we're eating too much wheat and dairy and processed sugar in North America, which just completely suppresses the thyroid. And then from the energetic component, so many women are choking their words back. They're not speaking their truth. They're not expressing themselves because they're afraid of being rejected or causing conflict. And that suppresses our throat chakra where our thyroid resides. And so I will see women, everything on paper. They do the physical healing. They start healing their relationship with food. And it's like when they start speaking up and saying no and honoring their voice, all of a sudden their labs come back the next retest and that was the change.
Wow.
So,
and in timing between those labs, what does that look like? What are we talking?
Oh, goodness. Well, if she's diligent, it could be 6 weeks that we see things significantly shift or less, but longer depending on what else might be going on. The perimenopause thing is so, oh my gosh, it's significant right now and women are not being heard.
Right.
Oh my goodness.
So you're seeing an influx in Canada.
Oh yeah. And I'm in it too. And I know how to manage it. So I can't imagine if I didn't know anything that I did, but I'm seeing a mass influx.
Right.
And what I notice with women who have been in any kind of emotional relationship with food is because when I went through it, when I was 24 and I healed before I did my hormone healing, I was postmenopausal, had no progesterone. My estrogen was through the roof. My cortisol was 2,000. Here in Canada, it should be less than 400. Wow. I had a thyroid issue. So it just goes to show you how these behaviors cause this domino.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Well, one more question. I really appreciate your perspective on these things and your work. It's really, really inspiring. And both as a wellness entrepreneur, but also as a healing advocate, how has that really influenced your message and in your mission, and anything you'd like to share on that front?
Yeah, just that like healing is possible and anything is possible. We've been programmed, we can't heal and we're going to be stuck with things forever. That is just, in my opinion, not true. And the power of the mind connected to the power of the body is so incredible. And so be willing to shed your old beliefs and be willing to step into something new so that you can show yourself how powerful you are. Because that's what this journey teaches everyone that comes forth, is they're so incredibly powerful and they didn't even know what they were capable of.
100%. Really beautiful. Well, one final question. So, Brain One is the platform that we've created. And again, it's focused on the idea of human health protocols and routines. What is your daily routine, Amber? If you could just share the top line of what you do from getting up in the morning to the evening.
Yeah, totally. So I wake up naturally, usually when the sun's coming up.
What time?
And 6:30ish.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then I try to get a few minutes of sun unless it's like at the middle of winter in a blizzard and I have my red light. I do EFT tapping in the morning. I drink my good electrolyte water. And then I have a snack and I do lymphatic drainage and then breakfast with my husband. We get outside now that it's nicer out. I do meditation before my client day starts. And then I take little breaks in between. And then in the evening, I kind of wind down with like a 5 more minutes of tapping or breath. And now we're spending most of the evenings outside, feet in the grass, sunshine, walks, gentle, mindful movements, that kind of stuff. So that's, I'm very balanced and it's important to have a really mindful routine. So
100%. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, really appreciate that and your candid and empowering story. To dive deeper into your work, people can check out your podcast, Emotional Eating Freedom. Is that correct?
The No Sugarcoating Podcast.
Yep. Okay. And your work on social media, what's your social handle?
It's my name, at Amber Romaniuk, Romaniuk.
Okay. Awesome. And we'll also put that in the notes. And don't forget to subscribe and share this episode with someone who needs to hear Amber's story. This is Brain Fitness One, and today we kept it as real as it gets. Thank you so much. Thank you, Amber. Appreciate your
Thanks for having me.
Awesome.